Welcome back, data detectives. In today's explainer, we're diving straight into the inner workings of First Bank Corporation. We're going to decode exactly how you can extract the really valuable stuff from a standard corporate database using SQL. Let's get right to it.
So, here's our roadmap for this investigation. First, the employee database blueprint. Then, basic retrieval, leveling up with joins, complex multi-table connections, tracking down the managers, and finally, the power of exclusion.
Section 1, the employee database blueprint. First things first, we really need to understand the landscape before we start writing any code.
Every solid investigation starts with a good foundation, right? In our world, that's the schema. You can think of a schema as the actual skeleton of the database. It defines exactly how all our data and tables are systematically organized. It's essentially our blueprint, laying out where every single piece of evidence lives. Simply put, if you don't know the schema, you're not finding the data.
And here is our playground. We've got 4 interconnected tables with everything we need to know about these corporate employees. There's the employee table, holding their name, street, and city. Then the works table, showing their name, company, and salary. We've also got the company table, which just details the company name and city. And finally, the manages table, linking an employee directly to their manager. Keep these 4 tables in mind because they are the absolute core of everything we're doing today. Moving on to Section 2, starting simple with basic retrieval. Let's kick this off with a straightforward mission. Who actually works for First Bank Corporation?
To grab those exact names, we run our very first super basic query. It reads, select employee name from works, where company name equals First Bank Corporation. It's just beautifully simple and totally logical.
The real takeaway here is just how it breaks down. We select what we want, look from a specific table, and set a where condition to catch our targets. You know, this select from where structure, that is the absolute bread and butter of our data detective work.
Okay, Section 3, leveling up with joins. So what if we need a bit more detail? Like, say we want to track down not just the names, but the actual cities these specific employees live in.
To pull this off, we use a join. Think of a join as building a logical bridge between the isolated islands of our tables. While our first query just used that single works table, we're now stitching tables together. We're using the employee's name as the common link to reach over and grab their city.
Let's take it a step further. Suppose we're auditing high earners, folks pulling in a salary greater than $10,000. We don't just want anyone on this list. We want the top tier.
To find them, we just expand our query. By throwing an AND operator into our where clause, we can perfectly target those high earners at First Bank Corporation, all while still pulling their street and city from the join tables. Basically, we're asking for records where the company is First Bank Corporation and the salary is strictly greater than $10,000. It's really all about stacking those conditions to narrow down your search.
All right, Section 4, complex multi-table connections. Now the plot thickens. Let's try to find employees who just so happen to live in the exact same city as the corporate headquarters they work for.
Now, I know this query looks pretty intimidating at first glance, but I promise it's really just an escalating chain of logical connections. We've got multiple joins happening here, bringing together 3 entirely different tables to answer our one specific question.
Let's break it down really quick. We are quite literally chaining bridges together. We join the employee table to the works table to link the people to their jobs. Then we join works to the company table to link those jobs to their respective headquarters. And finally, we just match the city column from both ends of our investigation. It's like a 3-piece puzzle, and it comes together perfectly.
Section 5, tracking down the managers. Time for a real challenge. Let's find employees who live on the exact same street and in the exact same city as their manager. For this, we need a self-referential join, which, looks a bit dizzying on paper. But notice how we reference the employee table twice? We do it once as E for the base employee and once as MGR for the manager. We're effectively opening up 2 copies of the exact same directory just to compare them against one another. Honestly, this is incredibly useful in the real world for spotting potential conflicts of interest, like an employee and manager secretly sharing an address. Here's how this builds out sequentially to solve our, kind of humorous problem of finding folks who live a little too close to their boss. Step 1, we find the base employee.
Step 2, we link to the managers table to figure out who their boss actually is. Step 3, we link that manager's name right back to a fresh instance of the employee table so we can pull the manager's address. And finally, we just match up the cities and streets. Easy.
Finally, Section 6, the power of exclusion. For our last trick in this explainer, we need to figure out who does not fit our profile. Because honestly, sometimes what you exclude is just as important as what you include.
Let's say we want to find all the employees who are not working for First Bank Corporation. Maybe we're doing a little competitor analysis. Look closely at this structure. We've got our main query sitting on the outside and a second entirely separate query living right there inside the parentheses.
This nested subquery, when you combine it with the not in command, acts as a massively powerful filter. Here's what happens. The database first runs that inner query to track down every single person working at First Bank. Then, the outer query scans the entire employee roster and just drops anyone who showed up on that inner list. Boom, excluded. As we wrap up this explainer, just look at what we've managed to achieve here. With only 4 simple tables, we uncovered hidden addresses, audited high salaries, mapped out entire corporate hierarchies, and cleanly filtered our data. At the end of the day, data is really just a giant puzzle waiting to be solved. So I'll leave you with this thought. What secrets is your next query going to reveal? Thanks for hanging out with me to explore this, and keep on learning.